Hello, my friends. I hope you're all doing really well today. I am so happy to be back with you and thoroughly impressed that you have invited someone to come and talk about mental health, not once, but twice in 1 year. So, well done. Well done. Well done. I'm very, very, very proud of you. So, thanks for having me back. If we didn't get a chance to meet the last time that I was in town, I'm Steve Austin. I am from Birmingham, Alabama. I was a pastor when I nearly died by suicide, and I've spent the past 8 years of recovery, blogging, writing books, recording podcasts, doing life coaching, traveling the globe, sharing my story, all about recovering from the very worst day of my life. So, that's a little about me. Other things you should know about me, Lindsay and I have been married for 13 years. We have Ben, who is 9, and Caroline, who is 6, going on 16. And I did not vote for Donald Trump. I know we're not supposed to be political. It's church. I'm just saying, just so you know, I didn't vote for that guy. What a mess we are in right now. Save me a spot across the border as soon as it opens up. Listen, last time I talked to you, we talked about my favorite Old Testament lady, Hagar. And we talked about this tattoo I have on my arm that says, El Roi, you are the God who sees me. You see me in my distress. You see me in my desperation. Today, we're talking about a similar theme, but we're talking about my favorite Old Testament fella, which is the prophet Elijah. So 1 Kings 19:5 says this: when Elijah saw how things were, he ran for dear life. He ran for dear life. How many of us, since this thing started in March, have wanted to run for dear life? Maybe yours is not pandemic related at all. Maybe you've seen the state of your marriage. Maybe you sort of have this out-of-body experience and you look at your own mental health and how it's not exactly where you'd like for it to be, and you think, boy, if I could just run away, I would. I think it's important to see that even our heroes in the Bible had similar experiences. So when Elijah saw how things were, he ran for dear life. It goes on to say, he came to a lone broom bush and collapsed in its shade, wanting in the worst way to be done with it all. To just die. Enough of this, God, he said. Take my life. I'm ready to join my ancestors in the grave. Exhausted, he fell asleep under the lone broom bush. It reminds me of my daughter. Just 2 or 3 days ago, Caroline came home and she had a really bad headache, and she said, Daddy, can we just get in your bed and turn off the lights and snuggle until supper's ready? My head hurts so bad. And so we did. And my sweet Caroline has much of her daddy's personality. We go until we can't, until we have to stop, until our body says, hey, you can't do this anymore. And so Caroline gets headaches. And so we laid down and we snuggled up, and within 5 minutes, she was snoring. I'm sorry, my daughter was not snoring. She was purring like a kitten, right? But that's what she's doing. And I think it's interesting that something similar happens here with Elijah. So let's talk about my friend Elijah for a minute. We don't know anything about his parents or where Eli came from. It seems like, it feels like he was just sort of dropped out of the clouds to be God's witness. And I think that because of that, a lot of people want to make Elijah and others like him superhuman. But if you follow Elijah's journey, you see that he was this flawed, weak, doubtful, doubt-filled person who loved God. And I think that's why I love him so much, because like Elijah, I'm flawed, weak, full of all kind of doubt. and I love God. What about you? You ever been there? Maybe you're there right now. So today, I want to ask you, what is your broom tree? Maybe you have been there or you're there right now wondering if God has abandoned you. Maybe it feels like the heavens are silent. Maybe they have been for an extended period of time. I get it. You know that I was a pastor when I nearly died by suicide. That's been almost 10 years ago. But nearly 20 years ago, when I was 19, I was driving home from college one afternoon. I had been really struggling with my mental health. I'd been having suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation for a year or two. Been having some really bad flashbacks since I was a senior in high school. And I remember coming to this crossroad, to this T intersection. And here in the States, it's a yellow sign with black arrows, one pointing that way, one pointing that way. You can't go straight. You got to go left or right. And I remember being in my old pickup truck, looking at that sign and how real, what a mystical experience that became for me, knowing that if I turn right, I'm going to drive a little ways and I'm going to open that glove box and I'm going to get that pistol out and I'm going to end it all. I'm going to run for dear life. If I turn left, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to mom's house and I'm going to take a nap. Now, I want to be real clear. You can't just sleep off mental illness. I wish we could. But there are days when you can sleep certain days off, right? So I'm wondering if you've ever been that tired. If you've ever been suicidal. If you've ever been so tired of life that you thought, if I just didn't wake up tomorrow, it'd be okay. I'd be okay with that. Or maybe you've wondered if anyone would ever miss you if you were gone. Maybe like me, you've thought about driving your car off that bridge or into that overpass, hoping, believing, thinking that it would look like an accident. Maybe you're just really stressed out. Maybe you're just absolutely overwhelmed because hello, pandemic. Hello, it feels like the world's going to hell in a handbasket, right? Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. I know he says that, but sometimes it feels like we're living in this world you will have trouble part, and that other part, that take heart, I've overcome the world part, seems 1,000 miles away. It seems impossible. It seems silly. Because don't you know what I'm living in right now, God? So, if you're struggling today, if you're struggling in this season, whether it's your mind, your emotions, just life in general, maybe you're just in a funk, then I want to give you 3 points that I think will help if you'll put them into practice. Number 1, let go. Let go. Number 2, hold on. And number 3, look up. Let go, hold on, look up. If you were at the church when I was there the last time, and if you bought a copy of my book, Catching Your Breath, I probably signed the book in a similar way. Let go, hold on, look up, keep letting go, keep holding on, keep looking up. And if you read the book, that message probably makes sense. But if you didn't, I want to take the next 20 minutes or so and clarify what I mean by letting go, holding on, and looking up. So when I talk about letting go, I think that one of the main things people need to let go of is this idea of a perfect life and what a perfect life should look like. A perfect church, a perfect marriage, perfect children, a perfect job, right? The perfect house. I think that we have been cursed by social media. And I know it can be wonderful. It's how we have all connected. But I think that we have been cursed by the sin of comparison that is alive and well in social media. That when I compare what I know about me, my flaws, my weaknesses, my doubt, right? When I compare those things that I know about me to what I don't know about you, when you post the picture of your new house, new car, new dog, new husband, new wife, new baby, it's easy for me to see those shiny, new, beautiful things and think that your life is shiny, new, beautiful, and perfect without struggle, right? But I know me. And I know the times I've screamed into my pillow. I know the times I've cried in the shower so no one would see my tear-stained cheeks. I know the times I've driven the long way home so that I could cuss God out. We compare our insides to other people's outsides, and it's exhausting. So I want to encourage you today, if that's you, to let go. Well, what do you need to let go of? Maybe you need to let go of substantial debt, the extra job that you don't need anymore, the fear of saying no to your children because you're afraid that you're going to harm them if you don't provide for their every whim. Maybe you need to let go of the fact that you need medication and you're going to need it for the rest of your life. Maybe you tried to come off that depression or anxiety med because you're feeling so much better and gosh, it's so stigmatized and I don't really want to be on this medicine if I don't have to be. Anybody been there before? Yeah. And then the thoughts start coming back. The depression comes back. That black dog starts nipping at your heels again. And you feel embarrassed. You feel humiliated. You feel weak. You feel ashamed because you got to call the doctor and say, hey, I need to get back on my meds. Let go. Let go of that shame. Let go of the fear of an unpredictable future. Let go of the shame of your past. Let go of the people, the places, the things that no longer serve you. Those people, places, and things that make you feel little, that make you feel not enough. It's time to let go of those people, places, and things. Whatever it is that's weighing you down. The only way to get from chaos to calm is to let go of the non-essential cargo, to let go of the things that are pulling you under. Okay, so I need to let go. Now I know what I need to let go of. How do I do it? Okay, I want you to start by making a list of everything that makes you, you. Everything that makes you who you are. Rhonda, hi. Mike, hello. Hi, Mayor. You folks who have done coaching with me, this may sound a little familiar. But I want you to list everything. I want you to list every fear, every failure, every dream, every success, every wound, everything that you hold sacred. I want you to list everything that makes you who you are. And you might need more than one piece of paper. You might need front and back. But I want you to write it all down, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then when you're done, I want you to put it down. Put it down. Take a break. Take a walk around the block, whatever you need to do. Come back to it a little later. And when you're ready, I want you to mark through all the things that no longer serve you. The goal is to mark through about 80% of that list. About 80% of that list so that you've got 10 things left, maybe 20, maybe 5. I want you, hopefully, to be able to narrow it down to just 3 to 5 things. 3 to 5 things on that list. Even if you started with 100, try to get it down to those 3 to 5 that make you uniquely you. And everything else you can let go of. And if you need help, then maybe it's time to call the therapist. Maybe you need a coach. You might want to talk to your pastor. Invite someone in. Figure out who that safe person is that you can share this list with and ask for some accountability in disengaging from the things that no longer feed you and actively engaging with the things that feed your soul. Okay? Number 2, hold on. So we've let go. Now we have to hold on. Well, why do you have to let go before you can hold on? Because if your hands are so full and you're carrying all these things, right? Like you're trying to carry all the groceries in at one time. Are you one of those people? Or you're trying to carry, all the suitcases into the hotel at one time so you don't have to make that other trip. Sometimes you have to put things down to give yourself space to hold something else. So let's talk about holding on. When I was in the 4th grade, anytime that I would whine or complain, my 4th grade teacher would say, "Steve Austin, life is hard and then you die." Terry Nobles, my 4th grade teacher. Life is hard and then you die. Now look, I know we're not supposed to talk about that and talk like that on Sunday mornings. We're supposed to talk about things like victory and healing and resurrection and miracles, not diseases that never get cured, not pain that never goes away, not depression that lasts a lifetime. Life is hard and then you die. I think that one of the major problems with the Western church today is our fear of engaging with anything that sounds chronic. So we don't talk about lament very much in church because that's messy. We'd rather have this instantaneous miracle than have to wade through these ankle-deep waters of grief and pain and suffering with someone else, especially when there's no end in sight. But more often than not, there's no end in sight. More often than not, diseases don't cure overnight. More often than not, pain lasts a while. Depression doesn't magically just disappear. And I know because I live it. I live with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And I try to do all the right things. I read my Bible every day. I pray. I go to church. I'm a good dad, a good husband, a good friend. I help other people. And yet, I have to live with this anxiety, depression, and PTSD because in this world you will have trouble. One morning, several months ago, I woke up and anxiety just slapped me in the face before I even opened my eyes. And I had this moment of wondering, is it always going to be this way? Probably. Hopefully not, but probably because mental illness is chronic, just like arthritis. It's chronic. It can last a lifetime. So that morning, I'm laying there beating myself up. And once Lindsay and the kids got off to school and work, I grabbed my bottle of medication and I sat down with my Bible. And here lately, when I read my Bible, my big question is, what can this collection of psalms and poems and stories and genealogies, what can it teach me about God's presence with me in the midst of despair? So I read about Elijah, and Elijah is lying next to a tree praying for God to let him die. Or there's this Old Testament character, Ahithophel, which I feel like makes me sound like I have a lisp. Ahithophel. 2 Samuel 17. He's the first biblical account of suicide. I know we think it's Judas, but it's not. Or what about the disciples in the boat on that storm-tossed sea, scared to death? What about Jesus? Jesus is so overwhelmed by the crowd that he pulls away. He pulls away from their neediness. He pulls away from their drama and says, I got to have a break. Put me in the boat. Let's go to the other side of the lake. These people are wearing me out. Didn't mean he didn't love them, but if I'm going to love them well, I need some distance. Any good parents out there know what I'm talking about? I need a little distance from y'all. Y'all making me cray-cray, right? There's this account in the Garden of Gethsemane where an angel comes to comfort Jesus. But as soon as the angel leaves, Jesus goes right back into that anxious, overwhelmed state, sweating literal drops of blood. He's being pressed like an olive into oil. That's in Matthew 26. So Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us, God made flesh. But God made flesh had fears and worries and anxiety because he was human too. And I think we forget that Jesus was human. So I enjoy reading the Bible these days because just beneath the surface of all these Bible stories, so many of them, the Bible has a lot to say about despair. Despair. And I'm so thankful for that because it gives me hope that, again, God sees me. It helps me feel less alone. And God sees you. Good and bad, happy, sad, mad, glad, rain or sunshine, on the mountain or hiding out in a cave. God sees you. So if you're living in the tension between, Jesus, can you help me right now? And I'm going to take this little pill while I wait for you to work. This is what I want to pray for you today. God of peace, still my anxious thoughts. Comfort my weary heart. Hold my shaking hands. Whisper goodness and mercy to my soul. I trust you, God. And as you do your work, I'm going to give my brain what it needs to function as clearly as possible. God, I hate this anxiety. To be honest, mental illness sucks. But I believe in a God who showed up for 3 little Hebrew boys in a fiery furnace. I trust in the same God who showed up in the middle of a storm-tossed sea. You sent angels to comfort Elijah when he wanted to die, much in the same way that they comforted Jesus. You gave Paul the strength to endure in all things. Your brand of inner calm can't be contained or explained. And that never-ending grace of yours, it's the cornerstone of my heart. So as my fragile frame rocks back and forth, I pray that you would find me here, that you would meet my fear with love, that you would wash over me with truth and grace, that you would quiet this spun-up mind of mine. And as I swallow this medication, as I go to therapy, as I ask for help, guide me into this truth, that you love me as I am, that your love never fails. Amen. So sometimes those waves of anxiety, they rock us back and forth. And just like the disciples in that boat, we can't seem to stop the storms. We hang out with Jesus all the time. We listen. We hang on his every word. But we can't capture the wind. We can't refuse lightning. Claps of thunder still startle our unsuspecting bodies in the middle of the night. Panic knocks us to our knees, and waves of depression threaten to drown us. But we trust in the God who walked on water, that God who walked on water to prove to us that he would never let us sink beneath the weight of our own woundedness. So when I'm afraid, when I'm lonely, when I'm hurting, when I'm depressed, when I'm manic, it's that voice that I hear, that same voice that walked on water saying, peace, be still. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. In one of the Psalms, the peace of God is described like a sentry guard. So if you imagine putting on the mind of Christ, and it's like there's this sentry guard marching back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, guarding your mind, guarding your thoughts, right? Back and forth, going, nope, not today. Not today, Satan. Not today. That's the peace that I want, that That God's peace isn't this weak, mamby-pamby, milquetoast, feel-good kind of easy, fluffy, light thing, but that God's peace fights for us. That's the peace I want. So maybe you're struggling to figure out what it means for you to keep holding on. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what's the worst thing I've ever had to endure? What's the worst thing I've ever had to endure? Number 2, how did I survive that? And I want you to get detailed. How did I survive the very worst thing I've ever lived through? And number 3, much like the last set of questions, who can I invite to share this story with? So what's the worst thing I've lived through? How did I live through it? And who can I tell? We need community to survive. All right, the final point for today, look up. So I want to read you a quote from Brené Brown. This is from The Gifts of Imperfection. Here's what she says. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as hard as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. So since I was with you the last time a year ago, I have spent lots and lots of time, countless hours, researching the topic of hope. And part of that research includes a survey where I asked people to tell me their questions about hope. One of the questions that appeared again and again is something to this effect. How does one muster up hope when they're out of steam and struggling? And my immediate gut response to that question is, don't. How does one muster up hope when they're out of steam and struggling? My answer is don't. Don't muster up hope. If hope for you means optimism, don't do it. Be out of steam. Be struggling. So today, for my family at least, marks 36 weeks that we have been practicing social distancing because of coronavirus. And it's lonely at times. It's frustrating. It is highly inconvenient. And when I'm feeling the heaviness of it, when I let myself go there, I keep returning back to that same story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. So I want to invite you to close your eyes for a minute, to get quiet. I want to do a little exercise together, but you got to get still and quiet first. So I invite you to close your eyes, and I want to ask you to take a couple of deep breaths with me. So we're going to breathe in through the nose, hold it for 3 seconds, and then release your breath through your mouth. We're going to breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. As you keep your eyes closed, I want you to imagine Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. So he knows the fate that lies before him. He expects to be arrested. He expects to eventually be killed by those who hate him, by those who hate his message. And Jesus kneels in exhaustion. He's sweating drops of blood, and he prays, begging God to take away his pain. God, if there is any other way, please take this cup from me. I don't want to do this, Abba. I don't want to walk through this. This is unthinkable. And then he turns to his friends. He already told his friends that sorrow was crushing his life out of him. And yet his friends are asleep. Every last one of them are sound asleep in his greatest hour of need. And I just wonder how tempting it must have been to just give in to the lie that he's all alone, that God has turned his back on his son, and so have the very ones he will give up his life for in just a few hours. That's exactly how despair sneaks in. It seeps into our already fragile state and it suffocates us. It takes our breath, and worse than that, it takes our hope. And yet, as weird as it sounds, it is right there in the garden, in the mental anguish of Jesus, that I find the most comfort. I find the most comfort. I find the most peace. I know that I can go on in times that are trying, in times that are uncertain, because this story shows me that Jesus understands my darkest thoughts. He understands what it's like to desperately want connection, only to be faced with separation. He understands their wanting there to be any other way out of my pain than this one option that is staring me right in the face. Please let this cup pass from me. And it's right there in the woundedness, in the sorrow, in the anxiety, in the loneliness, that we're able to know ourselves accompanied by a God who has been there, by a God who gets it. So I read about Jesus in the garden. I read about Jesus on the cross, and this crucifix that I wear around my neck every day becomes more than just a fashion statement. It becomes more than just a piece of jewelry. And it's a reminder that God suffers with us. This co-suffering Savior who's not some far-off God sitting on a throne in the cosmos looking down, knowing about my experience. But he put skin on. He chose to leave the perfection, the glory, the majesty, the grace, the beauty, the peace of heaven, and put skin on. And come down here and willingly enter into my experience. That's what makes Jesus different than all these other gods, all these other religions, that God took on my pain, my experience, my lack, my shame. So keep looking up. I don't know your story, your specific failures and mistakes and labels and fears and expectations and hang-ups and doubts and wounds. I don't know all those things that make up that list that have made you, you. But I know that each of us have been made in the image of God, that the image of God has been stamped on our hearts. And that a lot of times we don't need our pastor to be our therapist. We don't need our friends to try to fix us. We just need a reminder that we're not alone. We need a reminder that God is an ever-present help in time of need. So if you don't see any growth right now, keep letting go. Keep holding on. Keep looking up. Know that some seasons are harder than others, that you can do all the right things and life can still fall apart. I want to close with this prayer that a friend of mine who's a pastor near Chicago, he opens every sermon, every service with this prayer, and I want to end with this today. Will you pray with me? When I feel lost or stuck in between two places, it can feel painful and lonely. When I experience pain, sorrow, grief, or depression, I don't have to chase it away. Religion won't magically make it go away. I acknowledge my heartache, trusting God to remain with me, reminding me that I still belong. The world tells us that we must change in order to gain acceptance. My own inner dialogue says the same thing. But today, I remind myself that I am loved exactly as I am. I will always be loved, even if I never change. My faults, flaws, and failures do not disqualify me from being loved. I am loved and worthy of love. I accept that I am accepted. Amen. Friends, thanks for having me. Please stay in touch. CatchingYourBreath.com. You can download my free self-care journal. It's 9 downloadable pages of self-care content that will help you create an intentional life of self-care. Hear this. Your life matters. Your story and your pain, your experiences, they matter, and God cares deeply about you. I'll see you next time. Thanks for having me.